Hello and welcome to Assembly Update. I'm Audrey Pitcher here today with Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz from the 81st Assembly District in the Bronx. Assemblyman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Wonderful to be here.
Now, you have been doing a lot of work in your district lately, especially with regards to ensuring traffic safety in your district.
Yes, it's a constant issue, and we deal with it all the time. For example, we had a press conference with a lot of people from the community there, Councilman Eric Dinowitz and myself, just a few days ago. So recently, there was another car accident in the northern part of Riverdale. The northern part of Riverdale, east of Riverdale Avenue, between 259th and 263rd. It's mostly single-family homes, and drivers aren't always obeying all the rules. But the problem is sometimes there needs to be more rules, and what we called for are four-way stop signs and at every intersection, and speed bumps in appropriate places throughout the area. We've managed over the years to get additional stop signs, additional speed bumps, but we need more. I mean, the streets aren't always, in a regular grid like that. And, safety has to come first. There are a lot of kids in the neighborhood, a lot of older people, and there was an accident. A young girl was in a car, and the car was struck. She was injured. Fortunately, it wasn't a terrible injury, relative to what could have been, but I think it highlighted the need. And we had actually previously requested of New York City DOT that they install more traffic safety measures, such as stop signs and speed bumps, and that call was rejected. So we took the opportunity of this unfortunate accident to call for it again, because we don't want anybody getting killed. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And, they always say, well, you can't get a new traffic light unless somebody is killed. Well, it shouldn't have to be that way. And I would say that DOT, with the current Bronx Commissioner, is actually very responsive and, replies to inquiries immediately. But we need more to be done. Often DOT will tell us, well, federal guidelines and blah, blah, blah. They would, and my response is, federal guidelines would give you like the minimum criteria for a red light, a traffic signal or a stop sign to be installed, but it doesn't mean you can't do it if you don't meet that criteria. I mean, DOT has a certain amount of discretion. So we're asking for that. Members of the community board, local residents, others joined us in this call. A lot of people signed petitions to this effect. So this is one example of the type of stuff we do in every corner of the district to improve safety for people.
And you're also working with the Department of Transportation to expand the City Bike program, I believe?
Well, the Department of Transportation wants to expand the program. Not everybody loves that program. I have mixed feelings, but I think generally, it's a good idea. It essentially makes bikes available to people to go from place to place, usually not a long trip. The controversy regarding the program is the fact that those bike stations take up a lot of space and eliminate parking. So not too long ago, I guess it was over a year ago, they expanded it into parts of Community Board 7, into Van Cortlandt Village, and they took away so much parking. But the bikes are used. I could see that at least in certain locations, such as near the Amalgamated, most of the bikes aren't there at a given time, which means people are using them. So again, the councilman and I met with DOT officials on this, and they haven't put forth the specific locations, but it's generally going to be where they want to expand into much of Riverdale and into Norwood, both of which are in our districts. And our message was, when you come up with a potential list, listen to what the community says, and don't put these bike stations with cars parked. Rather, put them on sidewalks whenever possible, so you don't eliminate parking. Parking is precious. I know the city loves to eliminate parking, but it's not easy for people. And we live in a community where, a lot of people need cars. So it would be a win-win if we could expand the program, but don't do it by causing major inconvenience to people.
Definitely. Now, there's been some controversy over the issue of daylighting in your district as well?
Right. There are proposals, and I think DOT, I think they're supporting it, but in any case, there are proposals, including legislation, to daylight all intersections. What does that mean? It would mean that cars can't park as close to the intersection as they can now. Like, you probably eliminate one car length. But if you think of a regular four-way intersection, eliminating one car length at every location eliminates 8 parking spots. I mean, this is one corner of the intersection. There's a spot here, there's a spot here, and then on each of the other 3 corners. And so eliminating 8 parking spots over and over again is a problem. Again, it certainly makes it look like the city wants to make it as hard as possible for people to have a car in the city. I mean, if you want to do that in Manhattan, be my guest. I don't care. But in the Bronx, where people may need cars, that could be a problem. Now, interestingly, some years ago, I put in a bill to prevent or ban cars over a certain height from being the last car going towards the intersection. Why? Because cars can obstruct visibility. That's the whole purpose of daylighting in the first place, after all. But you wouldn't have been able to have these SUVs that are this high when a normal car is lower. That legislation didn't go anywhere, and the city had absolutely no interest in it. But I guess the concept was something that they've maybe have grown to like. But so there is a legitimate concern here about visibility. People have to be able to see what's going on when they want to make a turn, or people crossing for that matter. But eliminating it on a wholesale basis, daylighting at every single intersection, that's actually an enormous change, and it should be done on a case-by-case basis, I would say.
Now, continuing with our transportation theme for today, there's also some legislation about speed cameras that I believe is up for renewal.
Yes. So every few years, we have to renew the authorization for speed cameras in New York City. I know some people hate them. I like them. And I think most people, when they think it through, like them. So some years ago, when the speed cameras were first authorized, it was authorized to, it would I think the ticket you would get from it was called speeding in a school zone, because the cameras had to be within, I think, a quarter of a mile of a school. And essentially what it does is any car that exceeds the speed limit by more than 10 miles per hour would get a ticket automatically sent. The ticket is to the car. It's like a parking ticket. It doesn't go against an individual. Then over the years, it expanded. We expanded it to be 24/7, not just during school hours, which is what the original law provided. And it was expanded to be a quarter of a mile radius around the school, not just a quarter of a mile, linear. And it works. What happens is that people who get a speed camera ticket tend not to speed again, at least not near where the camera is. But most people would tend to slow down in general. And why is this important? I mean, it's pretty obvious. If somebody gets hit by a car going at a higher speed, they're more likely to die than if they get struck at a lower speed. Best yet is not to get hit by a car. So the speed camera, the data we have shows that the number of tickets issued at particular cameras actually tends to go down over time. Why is that? Because some people learn their lessons. So there are those who say, oh, this is not just another revenue generator. I mean, it's true. It does bring in money. Each ticket is $50. It's not a huge ticket compared to, I mean, if you double park, you get a ticket that's, I think, much more expensive than that. But it brings in revenue, no question about it. But the purpose is to train people not to speed. And for those who complain about the revenue, I mean, the answer is really simple. If you don't speed, you don't get the ticket, you don't pay a penny. So whether or not you get a speed camera ticket is totally within your own control and nobody else's. So you can't blame anybody else. You can't blame the city, you can't blame the camera, you can blame yourself. So, don't speed. Now, I know, things happen sometimes. You don't realize you're going as fast as you might be. I get that. But if we're about saving lives and protecting people and preventing accidents, then this is a good thing. So I think last time we expanded the number of cameras to, I think there were 2,000 around the city. I know the ones that are in my area. In fact, if you go up Riverdale Avenue, there are almost like 3 cameras in a row. But all the cameras are pretty close by schools. But it's more than just schools. It's about safety. So I just hope that people don't get the tickets because they don't speed, or at least don't go past 35 in a 25 zone. So I expect we'll renew that law. We tend to do it at the end of session because why do something now when we can do it at the last minute? But I'm pretty sure it'll be renewed.
Now, with our last few minutes here, we are still deep in the budget process. Can you talk a bit about where we are in that process currently?
Yes. So yesterday being Monday, March 10th, what was submitted was the One House Assembly budget resolution. And then on Thursday, day after tomorrow, we are going to vote on that resolution, and the Senate will do the same thing with theirs. And that's kind of like our blueprint for what we, the Assembly, and what the Senate wants to see in the budget. And that begins really in earnest the 3-way budget negotiations.
And at that point, you're looking at just resolving the differences between the budget for the governor's budget, the Senate budget, and the Assembly budget?
Yes, and I'm sure 90-something% we're in agreement on already. It's that small amount of money that we have to, how much money to spend on schools, on Medicaid, and so on. There's always differences, so we have to iron out those differences, negotiate it, and there may be some major policy issues. We try to avoid big policy issues in the budget, but there will be discussion on reform of the discovery laws and some mental health reforms as well. So we'll see how that goes, but the real process begins once we pass the resolutions.
Well, as always, we look forward to seeing what that holds, and we look forward to talking to you about it later this week or next week.
Okay, great. Nice to be here.